Well, hello and welcome to MCLE This Week. I am your host, Bruce Richard, and today we have Shira Diner here with us. Shira's been a faculty on MCLE programs for, well, I've been here 7 years. It's been a much longer than that. She's also a chair on the Criminal Law Curriculum Advisory Committee, where she's been providing us with program ideas for ages. And Shira, you're also a new member of the MCLE board.
I am very excited to have joined a couple months ago.
Well, we're very thankful that you're here, that you are, help assisting us in all of these various capacities. But to be fair, that's not why we brought you on the podcast, because as much as I would love to talk about MCLE board activities, I'm afraid that most folks would probably be bored. Um, so what we wanted to talk to you on the podcast was about the work you're doing at the BU School of Law. I mean, specifically, could you share a little bit with the audience about what you do with the law students over at BU?
Sure. So I'm part of the BU Law School's criminal clinic. And so in the clinic, students in their third year of law school have the opportunity to have real clients, real public defender clients. So those are indigent folks who can't afford their own lawyers, who need court-appointed lawyers in criminal cases. So our students serve as lawyers for those students, for those clients.
Mhm.
And I help supervise the students in that work. And so in addition to helping them with the cases and going with them to court and, generally working with them on the case, we also have a weekly seminar that goes along with the clinic where we're able to explore sort of some big picture concepts of what's happening, what are they seeing, what are they feeling, and really using it as an opportunity to not just get the practice in court, but also to have the space to process and think about what it means and how the experience they're having sort of fits into the bigger questions about the criminal legal system. So that's the main thing I'm doing. But as part of the clinic, also there's a earlier semester of the clinic where students aren't in court, but they work on projects, and I help supervise on those projects as well. And then we have a trial skills class that, again, it's all part of the clinic. And
Sure.
so I'm involved with teaching all of that.
Right. What kind of projects are you talking about?
Yeah, so currently the students we call it the junior semester, so the first semester of the clinic, they're working on they're working on a clemency petition
Okay.
on behalf of a client. So again, you don't need to be 303 certified to do that because there's
Okay.
no right to counsel in those cases. So you don't have to, be a third year law student to be able to do that work. We're also working on a prison education course where students in the clinic are going to Nashua Street Jail, which is the Suffolk County Jail where people are held while they're awaiting trial. And the students are teaching the folks who are held there about the criminal legal system and different processes within the criminal legal system, which is super exciting. And then the third project currently is a conviction integrity review process. So we're working with DA's office in another state,
Okay.
and some of the students are reviewing cases for the DA's office to see if there was a problem with the conviction
Okay.
that they could try and that the DA's office should address.
So that's far more exciting than than the setup we had at my law school. But um, that sounds wonderful. How do you how do you pick which students get which cases, or is this just very much whatever's next up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In the cases the students who go to court, so the students who have the real clients, we try to, if when they were in their earlier semester of the clinic, if they helped out on one of the cases, which is also another function of our first semester students, if they helped out on the case, we try to give them that case, because presumably they may have already met the client, know
Sure.
something about the case, developed a
Right.
bit of a relationship with the people involved. But beyond that, if that doesn't work out for whatever reason, I think it's we try very hard to assign cases just basically at random, because if these students are going to become public defenders or do court appointed work, that's going to be the process for them getting cases, right? I
Sure.
mean, when you're a public defender, you get the cases that come to you. If you're a bar advocate, you get the cases that come to you. You don't get to pick and choose. And so I think we're trying to sort of replicate that process unless there is a specific reason because the student had already touched the case somehow or another.
Right. Now, I'm going to assume that not all of these cases wrap up smoothly right before graduation. So what happens to the cases that wander into the summer? Are the students, are some of the students sticking around to finish, or how does this work?
That is a great question. So no, unfortunately, no, no case, and the students are actually only touching the cases, working with the cases for one semester, which is a
Okay.
very short period of time
Right.
for sort of anything to happen on a case. So between semesters, so cases that start in the fall semester will just transition to another student in the spring semester.
Okay.
Cases that are still open in the spring semester um, will along with my co-teacher, we will cover the cases over the summer, and then give them to a student when the students return in the fall. The biggest challenge with that is for the clients, once they work directly with myself or my co-teacher, it's really hard to then go to a student after that
Right.
because it's sort of just in terms of expectations and they feel like they're, not, they're going from a real lawyer to a student. And we work so hard to help the clients feel that their student representation as quality and is as good as any other representation, but it's hard with that dynamic. So we really try, like, as we're getting towards midway through the spring semester to figure out, like, what can we wrap up. Let's not take new cases because the cases that do hold over like that create a bit of an uncomfortable dynamic for sure.
Right. So a student is already in the midst of struggling and now has a client who isn't necessarily happy that they're the ones representing them. So,
Exactly. It's just
right.
another, I mean, as I'm sure you know, like, it is always an obstacle when a client, someone who's charged with a crime, they get brought to court and the court says, okay, here's your lawyer, and it's not someone they've gone out and chosen on their own. That's already like a huge obstacle in
Right.
terms of developing a relationship. It's even huger when it's a student who they're being told is being assigned to their case.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's even worse, it's even harder when there's been a non-student working on the case to start. So
Right.
sort of keep trying to keep all of that in mind.
Okay. So, so how do you think participating in in the clinic, the experiential learning, how does this help with the transition for the student from law student into you know, real life full-time lawyer?
Yeah, it's so interesting when, without dating myself, I was in law school a long time ago, and I didn't do. I'm like, that's not true. I went the where I went to law school. I had a number of internship and experiential opportunities, including at the public defender's office, but they were not clinical. And so what that meant was I was off of school for 3 months, and I worked at the public defender's office, and I had an amazing experience, and it really helped solidify for me that I wanted to be a public defender. What I think the students in the clinic got that I didn't get was the space to experience being a public defender in a supportive environment and a way to learn about it as they're doing it. So, for example, I mean, it's hard work, right? Public defender work, if you're doing it as a
Right.
student, if you're doing it as someone who's been doing it for 20 years, whatever, it's really hard work. And for the students, they can have a hard conversation with a client or a frustrating meeting with the DA or a judge who's just yelling at them. And then we get to go back and I meet with them every week and we get to talk about what happened and how it made them feel. And we get to reflect on it. We get to figure out how we can, like, do it differently next time. And it's this constant cycle of preparing, reflecting, evaluating, and then trying it again. And I think what that gives people is like a real grounding in, like, this work can be sustainable. You can do this work for a long time if you have the right sort of skills and tools to be able to do that. So in addition to like the practical, getting the experience, being in court, meeting with
Right.
clients, I think the clinic, it's specifically gives students this opportunity to really think through how this work might like correspond with their professional goals and how they might be able to actually do this work in a way that's sustainable for their future.
Right. And honestly, the feedback, weekly feedback is not even something that I had ever even considered. I mean, that is so valuable when, to get that sort of feedback before you're actually even practicing is just, it's a significant part of the benefit.
100%. And it's not, it's not just feedback afterwards, it's feedback throughout, right? So if I have a student
Right.
who's working on a motion, I'm not letting them file that motion until it's perfect, right? Until
Yeah.
it's the level of motions that I would file. And so, we're going through so many different versions of it before they even file it. And then we get to talk about the argument and we practice things. So last week, we have a trial coming up
Hmm.
in the clinic. And so last week, we did a mock trial of that trial and we had different students playing different roles, but the student lawyers who are going to be, trying the case, who represent the client, they got to do the whole trial and we got to see how it played out and they got to practice everything and get lots
Okay.
of feedback before they do it for real.
See, and I mean, MCLE offers the mock trial, but it's, I mean, this is a mock trial with actual, this is actual facts. You
Yeah.
get to, it's the prep beforehand. It's got the glitches that are, supposedly cleaned out of all of the practice stuff because you're trying to focus on a specific area. So it's just wonderful.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really great. I mean, the ABA and the law schools
mhm.
more and more are moving towards experiential learning. There's, the ABA now requires, I think it's 6 credits, but don't quote me on that. And I think it's actually going to there's a proposal for it to increase. And I think it's so critical. It's really hard for me to imagine actually practicing without having this experience. I think it's just so valuable in whatever field you're going into, right? I know this field because this is what I do and what I know, but there are clinics at BU, at all the other law schools in so many different areas as well. And sometimes people ask me like what clinic should they do? Like how to decide what clinic. And I really believe like if you're not quite sure where you want to practice, like in what field, doesn't matter. Like if you think you want to do litigation, do a litigation clinic. Even if it's not like the particular practice area you want to do, the skills are
Right.
so transferable that just do something. It doesn't, you're
Yeah.
not making a lifetime commitment to being a public defender by doing the clinic that I work at.
Right.
Advance your practice with the MCLE Online Pass. For one monthly subscription fee, you can access everything MCLE has online: live and on demand webcasts, ebooks, forms, checklists, and more. Start your free trial today at mcle.org/onlinepass.
So what would be the top tips you would give to uh to one of the graduating students as far as top tips for having a successful first year of practice?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that they have to trust themselves. They have to have faith and confidence in themselves that if they're working at a public defender's office, somebody who's really experienced made a decision that they possess the skills to be able to do this work. If they're working for a bar advocate program, someone in that bar advocate program made that decision that they are able to do this. And so you can't, it's so easy to second guess yourself and to say, I'm not good enough and this is too hard and I don't have enough experience. But if someone else has put you in this position and you have to believe that you're good enough, because if you don't believe you're good enough to do it, then you're not going to be. And I realize that's a big ask, but it's really important to have that confidence
Right.
if you're going to do this work, because the fact is the clients deserve it, right? They deserve a lawyer who is confident in their own abilities. And
Right.
so I think that's the most I said that's number one. A close number two is you have to take care of yourself. Being a lawyer is really hard. Being a public defender is really, really hard. We meet people on their worst days, having, in terrible situations, the victims in cases of ours, the families, the clients, like everyone involved, no one wants to be there, right? Like this is not anybody's idea of fun. And it's really hard to carry other people's anxiety and other people's trauma. And that's what we do so much
Right.
as public defenders. And so I think if lawyers, and I tell this to the law students, but I think it's even more important when you start practicing, you can early on in your career, like day one in your career, develop good skills for work-life balance and self-care. That is what's going to keep you in the work longer. If you burn out in the first year, you're no good you're no good to anyone after that. And I've seen
Right.
so many people burn out of this work because they just weren't able to find those balances. And there's so many resources now out there to
Right.
help people. And I think law schools are doing a fantastic job of teaching this as a lawyering skill. But I think those are the two most important pieces of advice I would give anyone.
Okay. Um, what are some of the common misconceptions law students have about defense work or just practicing law in general?
Yeah, I think it's probably the same one that, most non-lawyers or non-litigators have, which is I don't think they realize just how slow this process and this system works, right? That we can sit in court for 3 hours to get a case call to then get it continued to another date, to then sit in court for 3 hours, to then have the case called and continue to another date. That there is a real people, students, law students, come in with these big concepts of justice and fairness and equality, and that's so good, and that's so much of underlying what we do. But there's so much of the day-to-day grind of this work that I don't think students appreciate, and I don't think anyone appreciates until they're in it. And so, I personally look at that, and I think that's part of how they wear us down, right? It's how they wear clients down. It's how they wear lawyers down. So I'm glad that they noticed that, because to me that's an
Hmm.
important factor. But they are definitely surprised by that. I think students are also often surprised by how grateful and appreciative the clients are. Like I think they're not usually expecting that, and most of the times the clients really do express their appreciation for the work the students have done. So I think that's another one. And I think the third is I think the students are really surprised by the varying levels of practice that they see from other attorneys, that when they're sitting in court or they have, it's a co-defendant case or some reason that brings them into communication with other attorneys, that I don't think they realize how much of a variety there is of sort of levels of practice and levels of commitment to the work.
Right. Yeah, it's wide ranging. I know that when I got into law school, by the end of the second year, it was very clear to me that the reasons I had gone to law school in the first place and the areas that I thought I was going to practice in were not where my skills lied. So
Yeah.
it was a dramatic shift for me going into third year. So if a new lawyer is struggling with imposter syndrome or with their confidence in court, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that whoever it is that hired them, be it a firm, an organization, a client, right? Who someone has made a decision that they, the new lawyer, is competent and qualified to do this, and they need to lean into that. You can't get it all. You can't build the confidence yourself. You have to sort of trust fall into the people who put you in the
Right.
position. And then the other thing I would say is actually a piece of something someone told me when I was a very new lawyer and I had done something not correctly, and I felt the weight of the world for having done it. I don't even remember what the thing was, but I remember what my colleague said, which is there's a reason they call it practicing law. that we are constantly practicing, right? Like no one knows everything all at once. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I surely don't know everything. Even if someone was to learn all the law that exists, which is impossible, it would change by the time they were done and they wouldn't know everything. No lawyer knows everything.
Right.
What makes an experienced lawyer a good lawyer is that experienced lawyers know how to find the answers to things they don't know. And so I really sort of try to lower the stakes for people, saying you don't need to know everything. You can't know everything. You need to know how to handle when you don't know the thing that comes in front of you. That's the real skill.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to wrap it up with just one more question. So
Okay.
as somebody who's practiced criminal defense, what is your favorite legal movie?
Oh, easy. Legally Blonde. I know I was probably supposed to say something much more deep and profound about that, but I will tell you, and it's not just because it's a great movie, which it is, but there is a scene in Legally Blonde that I think is the best example of how to not do a cross-examination. And anytime I have the opportunity to like talk about that, I think it's fantastic. It is just such a great movie, and there's so much to learn from the movie. So it's not just because it's awesome.
Well, that's a great answer because honestly, every other practitioner who's an instructor in any way immediately jumps to My Cousin Vinny.
I
And
know.
it's a great scene, but anything else, folks? There's all kinds of stuff out there.
Exactly. I have the utmost respect for My Cousin Vinny. I learned a lot about being a lawyer from it, but Legally Blonde, without a doubt.
Yeah, well, I mean, I never really looked at Tom Cruise and said, I really think that the best way is to badger your witness and scream at them that, and have them
Right.
get them to try and scream at you. Never seemed like the best option.
Not super helpful. Not super helpful. I mean, it worked out for Elle Woods in Legally Blonde, but what she did was she asked the question she didn't know an answer to. And it worked out for her, but it really could have backfired. So
right. So, Shira, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. It's just been a pleasure to get a chance to chat with you for a little bit and just sort of talk about what how it's going in the clinic and just sort of that transition for the students and how this is how the clinic itself is making things a smoother transition for them.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm sure you're going to get annoyed because I just thought of something else I should
Yeah,
say and
no,
I
that
have
is.
to edit it. But I would also say to law students, to new lawyers, people who are more experienced lawyers, that one of the best things we have going for us, especially in Massachusetts, is community, right? We are a close-knit legal community, and I think it's really important as you are starting out, as you're building your practice, that you get involved with bar associations. You do work that bring you into contact with other lawyers. And I think that's such an important support mechanism that not everybody takes advantage of. And it's really, really important, like not just your firm, not just the organization you work at, but look outside of that and you will find a lot of support out there. And I think that also helps people stay in the work for longer.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm going to plug MCLE here. If you are looking to be a part of your community, I mean, you don't need to attend an MCLE program because you're dying to know because you don't know anything about that particular area. If you're coming in person, it's an opportunity to network with some of the other folks who are attending and with the faculty that are here. As Shira can attest, everybody's excited to see somebody in person and have them just come up and ask a question. Being part of the Massachusetts legal community, there are all kinds of options, and you'd be remiss not to take advantage of as many as you can. So
absolutely. And MCLE has been such an important part of my development as an attorney. And I really do feel so strongly that it's a great way for people to get involved in so many different places that one can get involved with it. So not trying to shamelessly promote either, but I'm a big fan for obvious reasons.
right. Well, thank you so much, Shira. And we
Of
will
course.
I look forward to seeing you at the next program.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
The MCLE This Week podcast is a production of Massachusetts Continuing Legal Education in Boston, Massachusetts. For sponsorship opportunities, email us at podcast@mcle.org.